Hegel! The Changeling's fairy tale shenanigans take a backseat to the massively emotional episode of Lillian, her struggles, and some huge reveals of things I honestly wasn't even theorizing or thought would be revealed. We're of course going to get into all of that, some subtle things spelled out by song lyrics, all of it. I'm JBuck, welcome to JBuck Studios. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please click that like and subscribe button as it really helps out the channel and proves to my parents that I'm not wasting my college degrees. Now let's get into episode 7 of The Changeling. This is Lillian's spotlight episode, surprisingly all taking place in a gross, gritty hotel, which kind of reminded me of the Duplass Brothers series Room 104. It's the Elk Hotel, a very much real-life, sketchy-ass hotel that started as a place for immigrants to kind of stay at once arriving to Ellis Island, but soon spiraled into one of the most dangerous hotels in the world. Lillian goes back to this place to essentially relive her past, a past that was rewritten or rather erased, like the narrator explains. Beyond that, it's a journey of self-discovery, forgiveness, reliving the unimaginable struggles she had to overcome, while also second-guessing the decisions and paths that she's taken throughout her life. Almost an REM losing my religion-like episode, because Lillian has literally given up on her religion, which had been so prominent in her life, from the religious persecution in Uganda to her necklace to the lacy "Jesus is the answer" covers on her couch, and trying to unmake a deal with the devil that she had done decades prior. The forgiveness journey, in the framing of almost a very loose interpretation of A Christmas Carol, has her dealing with what happened in Uganda, Brian West being a good mother, and the reveal of Apollo's real father, each weighing heavily on her and were seemingly erased from her life. The first is Lillian contemplating whether or not she was a good mother to Apollo. Full of anxiety, she did the best that she could, but regrets essentially erasing the Ugandan heritage and fully accepting the American lifestyle, never standing up and being loud, but rather small and going with the flow. It's established after Lillian's cousin had died in the car flashback, she left the country to escape religious persecution that later turned into the Ugandan genocide. This was a reign of roughly 8 years by dictator Idi Amin, resulting in roughly 500,000 people perishing by his rule by 1979. The horrifying past is why Lillian wanted to move on and start new, but is full of conflict herself when it comes to her religion, culture, America, career, life in general. For example, Lillian didn't make Apollo mandizas, a Swahili delicacy, a tradition that was passed from her mother and grandmother before. The quote from a couple episodes ago stating, "Whomsoever is not taught by the mother will be taught by the world," really ties in with Lillian not teaching Apollo about his past and worrying about who will teach him about masculinity like baseball. Another quote from the To the Waters and the Wilds book states, "A baby is a dream made real," very much showing how Lillian had to give up her hopes and dreams of a lounge singer, instead giving birth to Apollo. Her dreams were made real in him. I saw a lot of similarities between Lillian and Emma with their upbringings, their struggle to raise a newborn, and deal with a husband who is less than supportive, calling them crazy, and kind of has tunnel vision about it all. You have a baby, and then everything should be sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Well, it's not really. The second past struggle Lillian has to deal with is Brian West, as we get a much more clearer backstory, depth into their relationship, and leading to his supposed disappearance. Much like many relationships, Lillian picked someone who was a safe bet. Brian was nice, comforting, helped hide Lillian's mistake, which we'll get into a little bit later, and love Apollo no matter what. However, as the relationship continued, Lillian honestly got the ick and slowly became scared of what Brian may do to her, or worse, what he would do to Apollo. This, of course, all brings us to what really happened that day. Lillian rushed through the doors of her apartment back from work and the weird nightmares Apollo had been having since childhood. Lillian saw Brian West attempting to drown Apollo in the bathtub, therefore rushed in, protected her child at any costs, and Brian West was
D-E-D, dead.
This had been something we had theorized was in the red suitcase, and yes, this is confirmed. Heck, the narrator in the opening of this episode even says, "People wash up in New York," literally, while Lester, the hotel owner, threatens to stuff someone in a suitcase and toss them in a river. So big money, no whammies for anyone that guessed Brian West was in the suitcase. A quick random aside, but the weird cartoon Brian and Apollo are watching is Fantastic Planet, a French animated sci-fi film from the 70s that depicts these giant blue humanoids called drogs snatching up humans called ohms and keeping them as pets, or rather slaughtering them to control the population, subtly hinting Brian is a trog in this situation while Apollo is an ohm. Now in between here is an emotional closure scene between Brian West and Lillian, where we all learn that forgiveness
is more than saying sorry.
Through the story Brian West tells, there's subtle context clues and hints that he had a life before Lillian, a lover. Brian West was gay and ashamed of who he truly was and wanted to be, as he and his lover, named Bill, had contracted HIV. Now, maybe I'm getting way off track here, so let me know in the comments, but Brian talks about Bill's wife. He lied that he was on a business trip. People thought Bill was his father, meaning an older man who was too hiding his true self from his family. But then adds that they both got sick, coughing, sores, something that had been affecting their people, meaning the gay community. Brian West couldn't return home to show his mother his true self because of the disheveled state his life was in, mentioning that he was from Massachusetts and something about witches, of course alluding to Cal and the Wise Ones and the history of the Salem witch trials, but rather how witches were prosecuted for being different, much like how he was different at this time in history. The final thing to really put this to rest is him wanting to hear Lena Horne's song Stormy Weather with this mysterious Bill character. Unfortunately, the two never got to see her together at the same time, and the lyrics and song meaning of Stormy Weather really illustrates this, with the lyrics expressing a deep sense of sadness and longing for a lost love and how it has impacted the protagonist's life, showing desolation and heartbreak that follows the end of a romantic relationship. Brian West, much like Lillian, wanted a life they couldn't have, instead picking the safe choice and having a son of his own. The final wanted wax glowing bathtub scene is him finally getting his last wish, with Lillian finally forgiving herself for what she had done to him. Now, part of me thought maybe, and I mean maybe, the Bill he's referring to is William, who oddly makes a cameo in this episode, with the subtitles confirming it is William. And maybe their people, meaning Norwegians. It feels way too convoluted because of the timing and aging and just why. But like everything, please let me know if this was also your thought process in the comments. The final struggle of Lillian is her hiding the mistake we mentioned earlier, and it's a big reveal that I honestly did not see coming at all, but Apollo's biological father is Lillian's boss, Charles Blackwood. What? Obviously, some of his pursuits were shown to us with the concert tickets, but that was in like 1988-ish, when in reality this happened in 1977 at the same Elk Hotel. Her sudden pregnancy is why she had to go with Brian West after all of those years. She had to cover her mistake. Personally, I thought that this was an entirely out of left field reveal, but looking back at previous episodes, it subtly hinted that there was definitely more between the pair.
Welcome to Lubbock, Weiss, and Blackwood. That's me.
It would be accurate to say that Lillian's first child was conceived in the beautiful blur of 1977.
Here we go. You know that.
Good afternoon, ladies.
The way he looks at you.
He's persistent.
How's the boy?
So yeah, Apollo's real daddy is Charles Blackwood, which is honestly interesting, all of which brings a close to the 3 bodies Lillian mentioned she was responsible for, her cousins in Uganda, Brian West, and her baby boy Apollo. In a final twist, wink wink, nod nod, hint hint, it's reinforced that all of the Changeling is that of a fairy tale, not starting with solely Apollo and Emma, but rather starting with Lillian and Brian West, as shown by the engraving on the table at the Elk Hotel. Now, for anyone who hasn't read the novel or listened to the audiobook, this is how the Changeling starts, and the V stands for the author, Victor Lavelle. So, the more you know. A few things before we wrap up. This strange dude with the sign and the hat is actually a younger version of Wheels. As you can see, he's sporting the same hat, and the sign is tucked behind Emma in episode 6. More than likely, he was in a similar situation as Brian West and was scared to go home to his mother, which he definitely alludes to in episode 6. The weird monster creature that's popped up from episode to episode has again made an appearance. Now, one commenter, shout out to _TinyTitan, suggested that it may be a Leshy, a guardian deity of the forest in pagan Slavic mythology. It does look a little wooden. My other guess is that this is a manifestation of past or generational trauma, something that had long been buried and wished away. 11/11 is a wish time, but will always rise to the surface and catch up to us. I'm a bit confused, to be honest, so let me know your thoughts on this creature in the comments below. And throw on those theory hats because, yeah, Apollo is going to dig up baby Brian in the finale. This quick flash shows the grave, and Apollo is in a hole looking down. So be prepared for him to discover that his lovely baby Brian is actually a little changeling monster or a bundle of sticks and leaves. And you know damn sure that this is going to be a cliffhanger ending. I hope not, but it really looks like they're setting that up. Anyway, that is everything for episode 7 of The Changeling, a massive detour from our usual fairy tale shenanigans that surprisingly is hella deep and fills in some huge backstory reveals we didn't even know that we needed. Obviously, the showrunners they've got to be banking on a season 2 because I've heard the final episode is like 30-ish minutes, maybe not, so we'll see. But what did you think of this episode? Good, bad, meh? And what sort of final theories do you have going into this last episode next week? Drop anything and everything in the comments. Also, giveaway competitions have started up as we'll be giving away 2 copies of Across the Spider-Verse on the 15th of October, and all you gotta do to get a chance of winning this is like this video, make sure to subscribe with the notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on The Changeling. We pick the comments at random, and the winners of our last giveaway are on screen right now. So if that's you, message me on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at my respective handle. And if you haven't, check out all of my other social media accounts for my Shorts and Clips YouTube channel, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, everything. Any and all support honestly really helps out the channel and keeps me creating high quality videos for y'all to enjoy. So please and thank you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.